Meeting, regular council meeting of the town of Fort Frances to order, it being session number 44. We welcome everyone here in person in our audience, and we welcome those attending virtually. We'll begin with a territorial acknowledgement. We begin by acknowledging that we are within Treaty 3 territory and that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people and homeland of the Métis Nation. As taught by a Treaty 3 Ojibwe elder, when we speak about the land, we recognize that we are the land. The land is all of us, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. The land is a collection of our history, our current experiences, and our future together. We offer this land acknowledgement in the spirit of reconciliation, recognizing the historical and contemporary impacts of colonialism, while committing to working together as Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to build a better future. Councillors, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest, and if so, state the general nature thereof? Councillor Mackey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a conflict in regards to the bylaws 13-24, 14-24, 15-24.
So noted. Thank you, Councillor Mackey. Any other conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations, as there are no delegations and deputations. And first up, we have the Rainy River Futures Development Corporation, and I think Ms. Angela Halverson is going to go first with Jeff Gillen as backup. We welcome both of you. I do want to say that the Rainy River Future Development Corporation has a long history of assisting economic development within the Rainy River District. And they've been very supportive in the past of Fort Frances, and in particular prior to our hiring of our new economic development officer. So we're very appreciative of that. We also want to congratulate Angela on her new position. You're the new director of the Rainy River Future Development Corporation. So congratulations on that and welcome. And if you're ready, take it away.
I am. Thank you so much. I appreciate the warm welcome, and this is my first time that I am presenting to council, so I appreciate the invitation, and hope I don't look too nervous, because I am a little. My name is Angela Halverson, and I'm the Executive Director at Rainy River Future Development Corporation. I'm here with my colleague and mentor, Jeff Gillen, who most of you probably know. He's looking at transitioning into retirement, so he's going to help me along the way with this presentation. I'm going to start out, and then he'll take over about halfway through. So, as I stated, we're Rainy River Future Development Corporation. We are the Community Futures organization for this area, the Rainy River District. We are one of 60 Community Future organizations in Ontario, one of 267 Community Futures across Canada. So we help small businesses and small social enterprises in rural and remote areas. We have 4 pillars of our services that we have and that we offer, and they include our community and strategic planning and socioeconomic development. We also work extensively on community-based projects. We provide business information and planning services, as well as access to capital for small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as social enterprises. So our mandate is the Rainy River Future Development promotes and supports entrepreneurship, solution-based lending, and community partnerships in the pursuit of regional economic development. You'll see here a list of our board of directors. I won't read them off, but you certainly can and have a look. You will notice that they are people from the district. They are from right across the district, including right from Fort Frances to Rainy River. And we have people from all different walks of life. They are all volunteers, so they do not get paid for their services. And they are our 2023 to 24 board of directors. You also see here we have 3 staff, including, as we said earlier, myself and Jeff Gillen, and we also have a bookkeeper, Shari King. Our FedNor consultant is Jeff O'Brien, who is out of the Thunder Bay office. For Community Futures, we actually have, of the 267 Community Futures in Canada, there are 1,271 staff. So it is a very large organization across Canada. With that, there's just under 3,000 volunteers that go with the staff that run the organization. This is our current loan portfolio as of December 31st. We have several different loan products that we offer to small businesses that help them to either get started or expand their businesses. And you will see that we have a couple of different loan products that are specific to COVID-19. One is the COVID-19 emergency loans, and the other is what's called the RRF, or our Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. Some of you may have heard of the CEBA, Canadian Emergency Business Accounts, that the banks offered, and this is a similar product that people that were unable to get financing through the banks were able to borrow. So right now we have just over $5 million out in loans that are slowly being paid back. Just a little bit of statistics about some of the other community futures across Canada. As of 2022-23, there were 325 million out in loans. So that's across the 267 community futures. Of those $325 million in loans, there were additional 725 million that were leveraged through those loans for those businesses. That included just under 21,000 jobs. So there's a significant impact in the small and rural communities in Canada. Just a little bit about our COVID loans. So we have, as I had mentioned, the COVID relief loans that were a loan fund that our board put together right after COVID hit. There were small loans of $20,000 that we lent to businesses to help them stay afloat during COVID. We were able to disperse 34 of those loans within the Rainy River District. Of those, 18 have been repaid, and we still have 131,000 outstanding in those loans. So we've had a very good payback so far. With the FedNor Regional Relief and Recovery Fund loans, we dispersed 79 loans, excuse me, additional loans to 51 clients. So this was another fund that FedNor had us administer to help people through the COVID pandemic. Of those 51 loans, the amount that we lent out was $2,792,000. 24 of those have been repaid, and I think that since this publication has been done, there's been a few more that had been repaid. The balance outstanding right now is just over 1 million. So this fund was really well utilized, and people are paying back. So that's a great thing. So of those ones that have been repaid, there was a certain forgiveness amount that the government allowed. There was 375,000 of those funds that came back that was forgiven. Our community activities, this is throughout 2022 to 2023. Community activities including training sessions that we've held, community consultations and meetings, workshops and seminars, and we've done a couple of funders forums, 320 different activities that have occurred in the Rainy River District to assist in delivering the 4 pillars of our organization. The RFDC operates under 2 main categories: business investment and regional economic development. Our business investment fund is supported by FedNor, and our money comes from the federal government, FedNor, and that money that comes into our investment fund is used only for lending. So none of our per capita money that comes in is used to lend out to small businesses. It is used strictly for projects. So that's the other side of the organization, the regional economic development, which includes any per capita funding that we can't bring in. That is all used specifically for economic development projects and other services. And a lot of times that money is also used to leverage other funding from other sources. So with that, I'm going to have Jeff come up and explain that a little further. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for having us here. But one of the reasons is we're here to request the $7 per capita that we've been asking from the municipalities for at least 15 years. And we'd like to think we give you value for the funds that you give us. And we're one of the only agencies, I think, that haven't increased over the last 10 or 15 years. The reason for that is we also do other projects that you'll see. We're able to earn administrative funds, and it allows us to not have to keep increasing our per capita. So, so part of it is we do these presentations to all of the municipalities in the Rainy River District, and we do that so we have unity to some level. So when we're applying for funds to the federal and provincial governments, it's as a district, and it makes it easier for us to get funding. So I think we have 8 of 9 municipalities in the Rainy River District, excluding Atikokan, that are supporting us right now at $7 per capita. And we try to work on projects in each and every one of those communities. So we'll keep. So some examples of municipal assistance is in the last year, we did strategic planning sessions in Emo and La Valley, and we support the Rainy River Economic Development Officer, Jajit. But in the last 2 or 3 months, we've been working closely with your new Economic Development Officer, Martin. We've seen him 3 or 4 times. We've given him many reports, advice, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know, he'll have to find his own path. But we are there to support him and any of the projects that once he's up and running, whether he's bringing some to the town or they want to put on an event, RFDC will be there to support them. Okay. One of the projects we worked on in the last year is this mini modular home project for the town of Rainy River, and they've incorporated and have investors, and they're still working on getting the building and moving it forward. But given the times we have with the push for housing, it's a good opportunity. So we're out of that now because we kind of lead the horse to the water, but because we're a funder, they may come back and ask us for a loan. We can't be working both sides of the fence. So I'm out of that project. One of the things that we do is, and this is Fort Frances specific, is we administer the 50% marketing of the municipal accommodation tax. Back in January 2019, the town council of the day implemented the accommodation tax, which is 4% on roofed accommodations. I think we have 8 of them. And of that 4%, 50% of the 4% comes to the RFDC, and the other 50% stays with the town of Fort Frances. With money, we're able to support activities, the website, sport shows, and I'm pretty sure that I think the MAT committee is meeting mid-March, and the MAT will come here, and I'm not sure who, but they will do a presentation on what they're doing and what they want to do, both from a marketing and a capital side, because they've got a list of projects and things that they'd like to see. And I'm not going to rain on their parade. These are some of the things that we've used the MAT money for. Because we got it in 2019, there was a dip in the revenues because of the COVID as we lost. But we still actually had money because there were contractors and people who came in. So we were able to do a digital marketing fishing contest. We created a Destination Fort Frances website, which we're still paying for. Go and check it out. We have a website called We Got Snow, but I'm not sure it's working this year. We've done some destination signage, and we had experiential tourism workshops. So they've got a slate of things that they want to implement. We recently were supported by FedNor with the MAT money and the FedNor money, and that we had that for these things that we did. So they've got a whole slate of projects that they want to do and will do, and they'll come and see you, I think, before May. That's what I was told. So some of the other projects, we support the Heart of the Tourism route, Mike, and I know you're interested in that, and they've got some signage on the road, but not a lot. We support the immigration pilot project that's now ended, but we support sessions. I think there's one coming up I'll show you. We've been working with New Gold trying to get a procurement session, but that's been difficult, challenging. And then we do telecommunications and digital economy stuff, which we'll get to in a little while. Not that Fort Frances needs it anymore because you already got fiber. It's really good. So March 20th, demystifying immigration. So that'll be held at the meeting room at the Super 8 at 9 a.m. And if you need any information on it, talk to Angela. That's hers. So other things we do on behalf of Fort Frances. So the RFDC has a share and a seat on the Boundary Water Forest Management Corporation Board of Directors. And we support Mike Willick, who's our member, meaning the Fort Frances and districts seat on that board. When it was created, the municipalities couldn't have a seat. So both RFDC and the Atikokan Economic Development have seats. And with the issues we've had, we've hired Mike and he attends the meetings for us on everybody's behalf. And we did a study to investigate the wood fiber, and there's a significant amount of unmerchantable wood fiber in the forest. And we have been searching for users for that, and we've had a couple of contacts, and we're moving forward with that, and hopefully something positive will come from it. Another project that I work on specifically is the Grand Council Treaty 3 and Bell Canada fiber optic project. It is to provide fiber optic services to the First Nations in Grand Council Treaty 3 and adjacent non-Indigenous communities. So, and the simple example of that is Nakatchewenan and Devlin. For Bell to do Nakatchewenan, which was just announced last week that it's gone, the fiber's lit, the control office for that is in Devlin. So eventually Devlin will be fibered, at least the village. And then that leaves us for the next step of surrounding, which is another company. And this is just a high level diagram of the project. You can see it's expansive. I think the total amount of money is around 51 million that Treaty 3 got for it. So we're kind of hooking our wagon to them, and hopefully we'll get most of those non-Indigenous communities fibered. And I like to say that I know there's Starlink out there, and some of you have, but I'd like to say that I think that fiber optics is the gold standard because it's not affected by weather, and it's there for a long time. So I'm not sure how long the satellites will work and that kind of stuff. I'm working also with community network partners. They're in the process of doing design work for the township of Alberton with an expected build in 2025. And they're also working with other communities west of Alberton. So we're trying to cover as many, and there's kind of a high level diagram of what they're doing. When you take Emo and La Valley or Devlin out of it, there's a lot of houses out there. You know, Alberton especially has got quite a significant population, and so they're going to fiber most of Alberton. So, and then the other projects that I work on specifically on behalf of the corporation are our tile drainage projects. We've got 8 projects, 6 completed, 2 operational, that we hope at least get one of them finished this coming summer. And we think we have enough potential for a 9th tile project. Each one of these projects is $2 million, basically. NOHFC puts in $1 million, and the producers themselves put in the rest. And it's a significant investment by the area producers. There are times I wish it would all come here and we'd have stuff, but it's out there in the district, and you have to drive around to see it. So the big problem or the big benefit for municipalities is it increases the land value to Class 1, which over time will increase the tax on the farmland. So it's beneficial to the small municipalities. And Dawson has asked for us to work with MPAC on it, but it's taken a long time. So we'll see. And this is just a breakdown of where the tiling has gone. And be about 15,400 acres if they're all tiled in all 8 projects. And this just shows you where we are if from seeded land from 2014 to now, 10 years. It's just been, every year it's been increasing and almost on a linear basis. So we hope by 2025, 26, we'll have them 15,000 acres tiled. And if you haven't noticed, and there's pictures of it, but in the last fall, before it froze in Thunder Bay, you saw the baseline trucks that rolled back and forth through Fort Frances, the B trains, big B trains. That's all Rainy River District grain going to Thunder Bay. They also go to Minneapolis and to northern Minnesota for canola oil, but we get a visible sign of that, and that's economic activity that benefits Fort Frances. So this is just a kind of high-level look at the 15,000 acres. The NOHFC puts in up to $1,000 or cost the $1,300 an acre average to tile. NOHFC will pay up to $500 an acre to the producer, and the producer investment has been up to $12 million, maybe more now. So it's a significant investment in the Rainy River District. And that's just for the tiling. Over and above the tiling, you've got buildings, storage bins, trucks, combines, you name it. This, if you go to Rainy River, you'll see this is the Brilman Agriculture elevator. You'll see one of their trucks. And this is they got these, I think there's 6 now, there are 12 bins. They're like 70,000 bushels, those bins. And this is the building that they built last summer. It's approximately 15,000 square feet, and it's to service their trucks and their combines. And it, going back to working for the district, that went where it went. It would have been nice if it was an industrial park. But the farmers work out there. Another project that we have is we started a hops yard, and it's in at the ag station in Emo. So we've been harvesting hops since basically 2019. They were planted. We harvested them last fall, and we're hoping to get some kind of beer made with them. They went up to Lake of the Woods Brewery, but I haven't heard anything since. And then there's one hops yard in Chapel and 2 in La Valley. So there are producers, they're highly intensive agriculture, and they're perennial. So once you get your hops yard built, every year you get a crop. And to this date, they're all able to sell their hops because of the growth in the craft brewery industry, right? And so the hops go to, like right now, Lake of the Woods, but they're trying to get into Thunder Bay and the 3 breweries there. And so the RFDC is bought up because their hops kind of grow in bunches like grapes, and so they're hard to harvest. So 2 years ago, the RFDC purchased, with the help of the NOHFC, hops harvester and a baler. So those are stored at the Emo Ag Station and where the hops are, and the producers that have other hops can use it free as long as they sign a waiver. And this is the building that, again, on behalf, thank you NOHFC, we're going to store the hops harvester and the events tent. So it's still under construction. We also support the Rainy River Meats and the abattoir in Emo. So, and the RFDC manages the Go Local gift card program in Fort Frances. So I think it started in 2013, so it's been around 10 years already. And we still have 30 plus or minus merchants. And it retains money in the district. It started when the dollar was different, and people were going across the river, but it still is being supported by local businesses. And we have the big events tent that we got the new blue top for last year. Fort Frances Canadian Bass use it, and Rainy River Walleye. And sometimes the Rainy River Pumpkin Fest comes in with the walleye tournament before or after, depending on year. And finally, that's the tent. That's what it was last year in the bass. So hopefully the bass goes. We're membership driven, so it's $5 to be a member. And we always need board members, and we always need members of our business investment committee. So if you're interested, let us know. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilors, any questions for Jeff or Angela? Seeing none, I'll thank you very much, Jeff and Angela, and we thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of the district. It's greatly appreciated. With respect to your request for funding, we don't make any decision this evening. That'll go into our budget process.
Problem. That's no problem. I just got to do this. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody.
Okay. That brings us to item 5.2 under presentations. We have Glenn Manning from HTFC Planning and Design about to deliver a presentation on the La Vérendrye Parkway expansion. This is a really exciting project, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. Glenn, are you all set?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great.
Take it away.
All right. I'll share my screen.
Could be a little bit louder, Glenn.
All right. Let me get the volume up. No.
No sound now.
Okay.
Okay,
Give me a moment and I'll turn it up.
we can hear you now.
Okay. Great. How's that for volume?
That's better.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much. Oh, I'm on the wrong end of my presentation here. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop presenting for a moment. It's got my screens mixed up here. All my notes in there. I can probably wing it because I have a long night ahead of you. So let me, I'll just go through without the notes then. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about the project. We've been at this for about a year or so, a little more than a year. And we started with preparing a vision for the document. The vision was that the La Vérendrye Parkway would become an accessible showcase for the natural beauty and local heritage of Fort Frances, connecting the key destinations of Point Park, Royal Canadian Legion Park. We'd identified 5 different goals. So the first was that the parkway would be fully integrated into the mill site redevelopment, that it would connect to and help catalyze the Gateway to Fort Frances Town Center redevelopment project that we worked on a few years back. The parkway would also draw on the character and the existing parkway and create a unified whole. But at the same time, we're looking to bring it up to date and help to comply with current pedestrian cycle standards for safety and comfort and accessibility. The parkway will also be a cost-effective investment. So we were quite cognizant about how it's a large facility and, the costs add up. So we wanted to make sure that it's going to be affordable both in terms of construction and operation. And the parkway will also connect places, so cultures, and we'll be doing this in a spirit of respect and collaboration. And I just wanted to compliment you all. I think that was quite a beautiful land acknowledgement just to begin the meeting. So that was inspiring, and thanks for that. The process we went through, we started in the fall of 2022, and in February we came out, met with some stakeholders and a project manager. We had a look at how the parkway was being used, and in February there wasn't a lot of action there, but it was a surprising number of people still wandering back and forth using the trails. So we were also looking at the context and pattern condition of the facilities there, and also spent a lot of time talking to the folks redeveloping the mill site. In June 2023, our geotechnical, civil, and environmental consultants came out to the site and did their investigations. In July of the same year, there was a memorandum that was submitted with information on the official plan. That was our background study of other planning aspects, property ownership, the zoning bylaw, and other policies that were affecting the work. And then in November, our environmental site assessment was submitted. And then the final coordination with the project manager and stakeholders happened just before Christmas, and we submitted that final report just as the holidays were closing in on us. In January, there were some revisions that came our way, and now we're looking at the council presentation. For the project, we split it into 3 segments. The segments go, because we are building on the existing parkway, they go from, east to west. So it's maybe a little disorienting. Number 1's on the right. The first section was from Victoria Avenue up to the International Bridge. Segment 2 goes from the bridge to York Avenue, and then York to Lily, to Legion Park. So you can see a general character of the 3 areas. Segment 1 is a long section through the mill site. Oh, pardon me. Section 2, or segment 2, it kind of takes you out onto the street, and segment 3 is the final piece that goes through the cemetery and to the park. There were a number of concurrent projects we were looking at that needed to be considered as we were doing this parkway expansion planning. The first was the Gateway to Fort Frances project. This abuts right up against it. And part of the terms of reference for the project were to find ways to help this along and make sure that whatever we do through this expansion, that we are supporting and complementing the work that was already done and approved on the Gateway. The mill development is the largest of the bunch. It's a really exciting project going on there, and it looks like you guys are well underway on some great new things happening on the waterfront. And then also paying attention to the new facilities that have just gone in at the Royal Canadian Legion Park, the parking and the washrooms and splash pad. The process included a number of meetings and engagement. We didn't do formal public engagement on this project. It was really with stakeholders, which was the terms of reference we were delivered at the beginning. So we met with the Rainy River Future Development Group, just presented. We talked to Tanis Drysdale too in that same meeting. We were meeting with BMI Group as part of the Asogan LP ownership group for the mill site. We had another meeting, a virtual meeting with H2O Power, CBSA, Centra Pipeline, and we also reached out and connected with affected residents, the people whose properties are right near the cemetery, edge of the cemetery, where the trail is going to be passing behind their homes. So the proposed trail alignment for the project, there wasn't really a lot of options we looked at. There was, starting again at the east end and then working westward, runs along the waterfront through the mill site. And then because of the security requirements around the border crossing, we are swerving northward there along the alignment of Mowat Avenue. And then following Church Street to the west, where there's a small lookout node just at the bridge and canal. And then we follow the roadway again up around and then dip down into the mill site just at the end of Scott Street. And then you can see in this diagram that there's a bit of a fork in the road there. So we did investigate 2 different options there. And the first one, and this was actually our assumption, was we'd be running along the top of the bank behind the maintenance building in the cemetery area, and then going up along Lily to get to the Legion Park. But further investigation looked like there was a number of issues around that, and I can get into those in a way. So option 1, which goes northward and then follows the Kings Highway, was our preferred route. When we went through and looked at the planning and ownership context, one of the good news pieces is that there weren't a lot of property owners that would be affected with either of these alignments. It's either town of Fort Frances land or it's owned by the Asogan group. So that really simplifies negotiations. We thought that was good news. Other than the areas that are controlled by CBSA, and we're doing our best to avoid those spots. There are quite a number of easements along through the cross, especially right around the mill site, a number of utilities. And so the implications of those aren't quite as dire as we might expect, mostly because if we're talking about trail construction, it's pretty shallow excavation. And it just means that we need to be very clear notifying the utilities when we're crossing those areas, seeking the correct permissions, and just ensuring that the construction work itself is following the guidelines for depths. So no deal breaker there that we could see. The civil, geotechnical, and environmental reviews were also didn't really put any roadblocks to this work. There was a requirement for mitigation and soil testing that was recommended wherever we're working through the mill site. Our understanding is that the mitigation of the soil is the responsibility of the mill owners. So that's just something that would be happening as part of that. There were some issues identified in the civil engineering report, but those are mostly related to that segment 3 out behind the cemetery, where their first option of alignment was going to be crossing a number of culverts, and was also in the area where the geotechnical and hydrotechnical engineers are saying that there was some clear signs of bank instability. So all good reasons to avoid taking the route that runs along the top of bank and moving more toward the roadway. Okay, so for the new parkway expansion, there were a number of general strategies we were recommending. Right now, the trail is, I believe, 2.4 meters wide, or about 8 feet wide. We're proposing that the new construction would be in the neighborhood of 3.5 meters wide, which is really in keeping with current standards through the Transportation Association of Canada for multi-use pathways. It helps people with disabilities to get around. It means that people with wheelchairs can pass each other, and there's less chance of impacts, let's just say conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists using the same route. We're proposing that the trail surface be typically asphalt. It's less expensive than concrete or unit pavers that you've used throughout. Also, unit pavers are not a very friendly material to be using for some wheelchair users. The AODA is has some commentary on vibrations that the pavers set up. So the recommendation is for a concrete or asphalt surface. And because we're staying up out of the flood zone wherever we can, there's not much concern about the asphalt deteriorating from wetness. So we figure that's the most economical and useful material. Lighting, we have proposed pedestrian scale lighting, which is lower level lighting along the entire route. That's one of the largest cost items in this, so it's certainly something that the council could debate and decide on. It can be phased in, but the big advantage of pedestrian scale lighting, other than the obvious safety improvements, is that it helps to identify the entire route as part of one thing. You know, it helps to unify the overall look, and the lighting character along the existing parkway is quite beautiful, and it really creates this sort of string of pearls at night. It'd be very nice to be able to continue along if we're able to afford to do that. Planting wise, we're not talking about planting trees along the whole way. There's quite a bit of forest and shelter. Instead, we'd be looking at pockets of planting where they're required for shelter or screening or directing views. Wayfinding signage is identified in most of the little drawings that I'm going to be showing you. Doesn't mean they're going to be everywhere. They'd be more likely located just at key entry points and where we think some other branded trail markers at regular intervals would make some sense. Public art and interpretive features would also be great to incorporate into the overall plan. We haven't identified specific spots for these because the process that we would recommend would be that that any public art would be done through some sort of community process where there would be a group, could be Indigenous people that would be involved in that. It could be other artisans you have in the community, but you'd want to be consulting with them and working out an overall plan for locations based on the themes that you're looking to commemorate, similarly with the interpretive stuff. So it's really just more a general recommendation to include something in the budget for those. And site furnishings too, we're thinking about a very robust wood and steel furniture that would recall some of the forest products that were used here. You know, and have a kind of a industrial quality to it. And we'd like to sprinkle those along pretty much at the same interval you were doing for the existing um, parkway. Okay, and I'm just going to run into some more specific strategies along, going again from east to west. So the first segment is Victoria Avenue to the International Bridge. And so this is right at the intersection of Front Street and Victoria Avenue. We're proposing here that the trail, which right now consists of an asphalt trail right along the curb, and then the unit paver trail that's a little further in, closer to the waterfront, that those two would come together. There's that existing pavilion there. We'd continue the two alignments, maybe in a different material, maybe in a combination of materials, but just to help us make that transition from the narrower pathways that are separated to a combined multi-use trail. And we'd use this section to make that. So it could be an area that has a little more robust landscaping, a little more like plantings and things in there. So you can see some of the numbers. Number 2 indicate where you can see some shrub beds. And this is also going to be a key access point to the mill development site. So there'll be a lot of activity right in this corner that would, benefit from something nice here. You'll also see that on the left side of the screen here that the trail is quite wide here. This is the full 6-meter width. That is taking advantage of the existing roadway here and just some resurfacing of that asphalt. But it's, it's in great shape. It's nice and level. It gives a wonderful view to the river, and it works well with the mill development's plans to create a kind of a promenade along the riverfront. So that's a very low cost bit of infrastructure to hold on to. So here's a section of what that might look like. You can see the number 6 there. That's the full 6-meter width. There's existing street lights there that we believe can be reused, but you can see at the little number 3 that we're proposing adding a pedestrian scale fixture at a lower level that would be at the same height as the existing lights that are running along Front Street right now. And then here and there, there'd be signs, interpretive signs, public art pieces, and some benches on the north side of that. All right, so this might be a bit of a jump for you. I'm going to take it back and just show the alignment a little more clearly. You can maybe see it on this one best. So as we were going through we have to avoid what they've called a sterile zone around the border crossing. So this is where the plan is for the alignment to swerve northward toward Mowat and then go west along Church Street. So I'm going to show you a section through Church Street now. So this is, so this is the CBSA building over on the left side here. This is a small sidewalk. We didn't look at doing anything there on this project, mostly because we really wanted to focus on the trail itself, the actual parkway. But we are proposing that the sidewalk on the north side of the street be widened so that we maintain that full 3.5 meter clear zone so that pedestrians and cyclists can be on this same level. There'll be an opportunity for some streetscaping in here too. May or may not be part of this project. We'd included some allowances in our costs for the project for it, but it could also be part of the gateway to the town center project if that's a more sensible way to carve that out. Okay, looking at segment 2 now. So segment 2 goes from the bridge up to York approximately and runs along the north edge of, I guess it's the Kraft Mill site, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the more interesting elements here as you're coming toward the bridge, there's a really great opportunity to create an overlook that would allow you to do some interpretation around the canal and the locks and the crossing itself and just some really nice industrial and political history of the community. So that's what this small space here is. We're looking at having the people walking along Church Street. There would be a formalized crossing here bit of an expanded plaza space for people to, choose the direction they're going. And then they can run along in a protected zone to this little overlook here with some benches and interpretive panels. Instead of the Jersey barriers that are there right now, those concrete movable barriers, we're proposing a raised curb with some bollards on it. So it's a little nicer view. And it also means that the cars, as they're turning there, could actually get a little better view of the waterfront at that point. So working north from there, this is a very interesting and complex part of the entire project. This segment 2 is the most complex part of what we've been asked to look at, because it starts to get into some grade changes and property ownership issues and just overall lots of different things that are coming to play here. So we are proposing in this case that there would be a trail that runs along. There's an existing retaining wall here, kind of at the lower level, and continues at the lower level, whereas there's another sidewalk up here that would take you right at street level up to the end of Scott Street. The reason we have two showing here is because we're not entirely sure the timeline that things are going to unfold as far as the mill development. From what we understand, talking to them, the focus is really on the east end and kind of working their way through the healthcare and then the hospitality kind of district, sub-districts. So this over here, which is the market district, is going to be later on, possibly, in which case it's probably better to have the pedestrians and the public and tourists working in an area where it's visible from the street. They'll be more comfortable. That's easier to maintain. So we're thinking more like an upper level walkways as phase 1, with the opportunity to connect with an asphalt pathway at the lower level as this whole area starts to become a little more developed. So here's a section, you can see what that might look like. Here's the upper level walkway with the existing retaining wall. We'd have to put a railing up there. It might be something that is inspired by or mimics the really interesting leaning rail kind of thing that's at the end of Scott Street. This would just be like unit pavers, concrete, typical sidewalk development. But again, we'd want to keep that 3.5 meter width. At the lower level, this is where that asphalt path, and it starts to have a different feel to it, a little more landscaped, a little more kind of natural feel. And this is a little more of an urban feel. And of course, those lights would also be our markers to help us know we're on the right path as we move along. And as this thing changes character through its length. Moving up to Scott Street here, again, this is kind of complicated as well. So we have still the upper level and we have the lower level areas. Right here, there's this is where that leaning rail, the sculptural railing that's kind of goes at different angles and preserves the view through. Along that retaining wall, we're proposing a small staircase here and another staircase at the other end, and a ramp that would allow you to get down to this level if you're either in a wheelchair or just want to cycle and not dismount. So those are the features that help you to negotiate those. Once you head north of here too, there really isn't room for a sidewalk along the side of the road. So we're proposing at that point, we no longer have the dual carriageways, the dual routes, that everyone would be directed down through the ramp or stairs to the lower level. And at that point, they run along. Here's a section through that. So here's the staircase. Here's that existing railing, a bit of a plaza at that point, more opportunities for seating and planting in the lower level trail. And then that would bring you down and along that existing stone retaining wall that curves along the north edge of the mill site, and that's this section. We did look at putting the trail up on top of there, and that's slightly better for sight lines and seeing the river and things, but it really, when you're up there, it kind of obscured the view of this lovely feature. And this is also better as far as access as we continue along. The alignment just seems like a more natural spot. So we're proposing to keep this as a visual feature rather than perching people up here where they're a little more exposed to the elements as well, more sheltered. All right. So after working along past that retaining wall, and then there's a bit of a ramp up the embankment that gets you up past these residences that we spoke to. Incidentally, what we heard from them was nobody was really too concerned about. Sometimes when you're doing a trail project in a community, people are worried about vagrancy or theft or noise, other things like that. There wasn't any of that from the folks we talked to. They were a little disappointed we weren't planning on expropriating them, but I think that's kind of not in the cards here. So working on to segment 3. This climbs that slope, moves across city land, and then goes along the Kings Highway. So here's a typical view. There's a bit of a grade change down to the cemetery here, so we'd have to negotiate that. There might be a little bit of regrading here in order to widen that sidewalk. The existing sidewalk ends about where this dashed line is, so we'd have to extend that a bit. But again, it'll be a very nice facility. That's the sort of thing that really helps when you get the pedestrians and cyclists moving here. It becomes a great economic development engine when there's that sort of flow going through there. And I understand just a little bit east of here, there's the new brewery being or tap house that's being proposed. So that kind of traffic could all help make this more successful. All right, so those are the main features of it. Cost estimates. We had looked at, we add everything up, including the lighting for this area, and we've got quite a long. It's like a 30 minute or so walk, so it's quite a ways, and so it works out to about $3.1 million for the construction costs. And then if we add in some overhead and allowances and some fees and other soft costs, it gets it up into the neighborhood of about $4.26 million for the whole project. It doesn't include HST or financing, or if there are any premiums for breaking it into phases or winter construction. And it also doesn't include property procurement. So we weren't entirely sure what the deal is going to end up with the mill owners right now, but the assumption we're working on, and this is at least what we heard during our talks of them, was that they see this facility as a real asset for their development. And so some form of agreement seemed like in the negotiation, was looking very positive, that there may not be an actual requirement to pay for the land, but instead there may be an opportunity to obtain some tax consideration, because by putting this along the waterfront, those properties have less access to the high value land. So there's, I think there's probably going to be a little bit of trading back and forth. So when we talk about next steps, it's not working right now. We talk about next steps. So sorry, maintenance is another topic. So on the maintenance side of things, that looked to me and that things are very well maintained on the existing. It's really one of your prime pieces of tourist real estate, and seems to be really well cared for. So carrying that along. There is the opportunity, and in other communities, we've helped them establish a digital database where they can keep track of trail conditions and how they're going to be looking after things. And it also helps when there's a call. Somebody says, oh, we've got a problem at the corner of this and this, then the database can be a place where you can track that and help you to kind of get your people looking after it. So that's an option for you, but only if you're looking to kind of streamline things, or if that's part of a system you're already using. And then we're also proposing that there would be like an annual joint walkthrough of the landowners. So that would be you and the mill owners to identify issues and opportunities and fine tune the maintenance practices. So, we're assuming there'd be some sort of either shared maintenance, or, if the town is doing the maintenance on the thing, that there would be some sort of payment for that from the mill owners, because their people are using it. So there's quite a bit of negotiation that has to happen to work out the fine details. But I think the more that there's a sense of joint ownership and stewardship of this facility, the more successful it'll be. So the next steps, as we see them, would be to confirm the agreement in principle with all parties. So clarifying things like the maintenance stuff we were just talking about, access rights, and form of tenure. tenure. So whether it's going to be outright purchase or a lease or easement, or we've done some stuff in the city of Winnipeg where it's just an enter and construct agreement. So the city was allowed to do streetscaping and things on private property with no cost to anyone. It's because it's a mutual benefit. So something like that might be the right mechanism here. Then you would hire a consultant team to undertake detailed design and costing for probably do the whole project, I would recommend, just like we did. And then work with the consultant to identify project phasing that would align with your available resources and timeline expectations. So if you don't want to do it all at once, they can help carve it into pieces, and then they would prepare separate construction packages for each phase, tender it out, and then build it out according to your identified timeline. That's all I have to say for today. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to entertain questions.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Glenn. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a really exciting project. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Brunetta?
Thank you, Your Worship. Glenn, just so you know, segment 1 is actually the former Kraft Mill site, and segment 2 is the former paper mill
I had them
site.
flipped
They're,
out.
they're just
Okay, thank
reversed.
you.
Yeah. I was sort of disappointed that in segment 3 we weren't able to, option 1 wasn't viable because of the stabilization of the bank. That was something I was really looking forward to in terms of continuing that visual of the river as you walk along. It's just something that I was hoping for, but I totally understand it. So getting back to the stabilization issue, in segment 1, you may have noticed that our existing trails, we've done some work because of flooding in the past, and we've added, I'm not sure what you call it, the big stones that you put on the bank.
Rip-rap. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yep.
is something like that included in the costing here? Because I wasn't sure if that was, to maintain the aesthetic of the trail, if it was something that was included or not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, our geotechnical engineer looked at the riprap that was there in segment 1 and segment 1 as it goes through the mill site. And their feeling was we were far enough back and that we're using an existing facility. We're not loading the bank up, which is when you get into trouble, that they didn't think additional riprapping was going to be required. I can double check and see if there's any more specific recommendations. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe there's no provision for riprap in phase 1, or
Thank
sorry,
you.
in segment 1. Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Brunetta. Other questions, councillors? I'm seeing no further questions, Glenn, so we'll thank you very, very much for that presentation.
Okay, and I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to work with you all. Thanks. Good luck with it.
Yeah, thank you and good night.
Okay, bye.
Okay, that brings us to item 6, Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Olson.
Sorry, Chair. I had a request. We have visitors here specifically for the community services item tonight.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's consideration to move it up on the agenda, maybe perhaps after the reports.
I'll just check with councillors. Is that okay with you? I'm seeing it's fine. So you'd like it moved right after the reports?
Please.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. So item 6, correspondence. We have a letter in response to one of our delegations at Roma. This was actually 2 of our delegations. This was the delegation on railway taxation and also on the funding. You councilors will have read the letter. I'm not going to read it again, but I just want to quote from it. We saw Rick Byers, who is the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Finance, and he wrote in the letter that they are committed to looking into the issues that we raised on the railway right-of-way properties, and also they were impressed with our feedback regarding the importance of the funding. We don't necessarily always get specific replies like that to our delegation, so I was heartened, especially by the commentary on the railway right-of-way. Councillors, I'll just ask if anyone has any questions or comments on that letter. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, now that they've acknowledged, our delegation, what our next steps will be as we move forward with this.
Well, the next step actually is with the government, since the ball is in their court. But what we'll be doing is we will continue to bring this issue to them. We've got their attention. We want to keep their attention. It's something that's very important to all small communities with railways going through them. And it needs to be, the taxation model needs to be changed. So we're going to stay on that, Councillor Olson. We'll go to reports on boards and committee activity. I'll give a brief report, and then we'll go to Councillor Mackey. I want to report on the Nonprofit Appreciation Week, which was this past week, something that the province has been promoting and I feel is long overdue. The Ontario government has begun to sponsor a nonprofit sector appreciation week, and this year was from February 12th to February 16th. And during this period, the government encourages communities to recognize local nonprofits that make a difference and to present them with a certificate of recognition. And I just want to encourage everyone to think about all of the nonprofits that exist in Fort Frances and what our community would look like if we didn't have these nonprofits working on behalf of all of us. So the government provided certificates of recognition for these nonprofits. They were nominated by the local mayors in communities. So I nominated several local nonprofits that are making a difference in our community. I do want to point out that there are other nonprofits that are doing equally good work other than the ones that I nominated, and I plan on nominating them next year. For these nonprofits, the government printed up personalized certificates of appreciation for them. I made a point of making an appointment and visiting with each of the nonprofits and presenting the certificates to them. They were very appreciative because it's not often that they get thanked for the wonderful work that they do. So I was warmly received in every single case. The government wanted photographs taken, so I had photographs taken at each nonprofit and then forwarded those photographs to the government, and the government is posting them on their YouTube channel. So just for your information, I nominated 7 this year, and I'll be nominating others next year. This year I nominated the Northwestern Ontario Métis Child and Family Services. I nominated the CMHA, the Fort Frances branch. I nominated the Northwestern Community Legal Clinic, Fort Frances branch of that. I nominated the United Native Friendship Center, Fort Frances Royal Canadian Legion, branch 19, Wichitawan, the Rainy River District Services Board, and the Community Living Fort Frances and District. And so to all of them, on behalf of our community, I say thank you very much for the work that you do. Moving on, very briefly, I attended a number of meetings. I'm just going to comment on 1 or 2. I want to comment on the Rainy River District Services Board meeting. The highlight of that meeting was the fact that we announced publicly, the board announced publicly, that they hired a new CAO, Shireen Gillies. Shireen is a former resident of Fort Frances. She had a very, very impressive resume, absolutely nailed the interview, and there is a press release out on the RRDSP website if you're interested in reading it. The Rainy River District Services Board is also in the process of making a business case to build a number of 8-plexes on the old St. Michael's School property that they acquired. This would provide much needed affordable housing for our community. And I think that's all I'll say about that one. The only other thing I think I'll mention is that I did a couple of media interviews. I did a media interview with Google Media out of Thunder Bay, talking specifically about the Nonprofit Appreciation Week. That's already appeared in the Thunder Bay paper, that particular article. And then I've done another media interview with the Fort Frances Times regarding the International Bridge and the meeting that we had recently about that and our Roma delegations. So we'll go to Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to speak in regards to the Senior Center. The last meeting was on Wednesday, the 21st at 10 a.m. And so firstly, although it's a few months away, June is senior month, and so there is a very full slate of activities booked for seniors throughout the community, and everyone's welcome. So if you get a chance, stop by the Senior Center and check out that slate or go on their Facebook page and see if something catches your eye. Discussion was had in regards to parking lot expansion on the south side of the building where the horseshoe pits are, and looking at possibly putting some lots there. 14 lots are all that was able to be put in there. However, that never came, that isn't a decision that has been made yet. They're just on the exploratory stages there. With the center being busier and busier, more activities, there is a need for more parking versus on the streets with the calendar parking. Lastly, the Senior Center is a volunteer-run facility. So if you are at home twiddling your thumbs, wondering what to do today, slide down to the Senior Center, see if there's something that you can do, volunteer an hour or two, or as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. The ever-vigilant clerk has pointed out to me that it's not just sufficient that we get council's permission to move the item, we have to do it formally. So that's on me. I'll do that formally now. I'll put a resolution on the floor that we move item 10, which is the 8th Street Trails Committee composition, and place it before the consent agenda. And I'll need a mover and second for that. Councillor Mackey, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on that oral resolution? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried, and there's no one opposed. So with that, then, I will go to item number 10, which is the Community Services Division reports, the 8th Street Trails. And prior to discussion, I'll put the resolution on the floor. There's a recommendation that Council dissolve the 8th Street Trails Committee effective immediately, and that Council directs administration to bring a report to Council before the end of May with a viable solution to continue supporting the 8th Street Trails volunteer group. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Behan, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on that question? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? That's carried, and there is no opposition. So I'll go to our Manager of Community Services and Culture, Manager Young, for some comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I would like to welcome the members of the 8th Street Trails Committee that are in the gallery this evening, showing their support and dedication to the 8th Street Trails and being present for the conversation. On February 12th, Council received Report AR 24-0513 that outlined specific feedback regarding the 8th Street Trails Committee, which included limiting the committee's ability to continue the great work that the 8th Street Trails Group had been doing before the committee was established, challenges with volunteer mandates that the town was not ready to accommodate through policy and procedure, and limiting the group's ability to secure available funding sources to improve the trails that the town is not eligible to apply for. And so for these reasons, the 8th Street Trails Committee should be dissolved to allow the working group to resume their operations as they were before the committee was established, which would allow them to reach the deadlines for the funding that they're trying to secure for 2024. Administration recognizes that the dissolving of the committee is not the end of the work that we need to do, and that's why we've asked Council for some time to continue working with our established partner group, the 8th Street Trails Group, to find reasonable ways forward for a permanent solution that we can work together. I've given some suggestions as to what that might include in the report, but we're not limiting the conversation to just those suggestions. We will continue to explore what other options would be best for this relationship to continue forward. So I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Manager Young. I just wanted to make the comment, and I'm so glad to see we have members of that committee here this evening. On behalf of council, I really want to thank you for your involvement in all the work that you've done on those trails. It's important to note that this resolution was discussed with the 8th Street Trail Committee, that they are in favor of it, and that council supports the 8th Street Trail Committee and want to continue to support the work that they're doing. And this resolution will further and make it easier for them to continue their work. Councillors, would you like to make any other questions or comments? Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say miigwech to the committee for allowing me to join you just for one meeting. It was a wonderful meeting. However, what I would like to see, I think, coming forward for the report in May is perhaps ordered direction from the committee. I know it's dissolved effective tonight, but if there is the committee meeting again, just what they see as the top order of the solutions to this. And I appreciate council making this decision tonight. It's not an easy one, but I think it's the right move for this particular committee. And good luck with additional funding. And if there's anything you ever need from council, please let us know.
Thank you very much, 8th Street Committee members. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you like, you'd be very welcome. But on the other hand, we will not be insulted if you decide to leave early. Okay, we're back to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item 8.2. Recommendation reads that council approve the regular council meeting minutes of February 13th, 2024, and that they be approved as presented. Item 8.3, the recommendation reads that the boards and committee meeting minutes be received as information. January 7th, 2024, Fort Frances Library Board meeting minutes. January 18, 2024, Fort Frances Library budget meeting minutes. January 10th, 2024, BIA minutes. January 17th, 2024, Fort Frances Museum and Culture Advisory Committee, and January 10th, 2024, Sister Betty Kennedy Advisory Committee. Item 8.4 is the year-end MFIPA summary report, and the recommendation reads that in accordance with Schedule A, Item 10 of Bylaw 53-23, relating to the delegation of powers and duties under certain acts, provides for the clerk as the head in regard to the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act report to council annually, and that council receive report AR-24-0517 being the 2023 year-end MFIPA report as information. Item 8.5, this deals with a resolution that came originally from the municipality of Prescott and Russell regarding the AMO policy update, and then Councillor Bernetta as well put this on as AMO policy. And it's a really topical and important resolution, and in fact it relates directly to our budget. So I'll read the recommendation. Whereas current provincial municipal fiscal arrangements are undermining Ontario's economic prosperity and quality of life, and whereas nearly a third of municipal spending in Ontario is for services in areas of provincial responsibility, and expenditures are outpacing provincial contributions by nearly $4 billion a year. Whereas municipal revenues, such as property taxes, do not grow with the economy or inflation. Whereas unprecedented population and housing growth will require significant investments in municipal infrastructure. Whereas municipalities are being asked to take on complex health and social challenges like homelessness, supporting asylum seekers, and addressing the mental health and addictions crisis. Whereas inflation, rising interest rates, and provincial policy decisions are sharply constraining municipal fiscal capacity. Whereas property taxpayers, including people on fixed incomes and small businesses, can't afford to subsidize income redistribution programs for those most in need. And whereas the province can and should invest more in the prosperity of communities, And whereas municipalities and the provincial government have a strong history of collaboration, therefore, be it resolved that the province of Ontario commit to undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario. And further, that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Finance, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. 8.6, it's another resolution that came from our previous council meeting, and the recommendation is that council support the Town of Newmarket Council resolution regarding statutory requirements for notices, and that the provincial government make an amendment to the Legislation Act 2006 to include digital publications as an acceptable means of publication for notice requirements for all provincial acts and regulations. Councillors, would you like to pull any of those items? Oh, seeing none, I'll pull one. I'll pull 8.4, which is the year-end MFIPA summary report. I just wanted to comment on reading it. I noticed that in 2019, there were only 2 MFIPA requests, and they were increasing every year. To 2022, there were 13 requests, and in 2023, including now appeals, there are 15. And what's happening is if you plot that on a graph, that's an exponential curve. And our clerk now is spending a greater and greater amount of her time dealing with these MFIPA requests. And that's not only time, but that's also expenditure of scarce municipal resources, because some of the MFIPA requests are difficult, they're complex, they're complicated, and so sometimes legal advice is required. And that all costs money. So I'm thinking that this might be a good topic for a future delegation to the provincial government, that something has to be done in terms of compensating the municipality for the time, effort, and costs of dealing with these requests. Any other comments? Okay, we have a resolution then. Sorry, Councillor Brunetta, go ahead.
I was just, sorry, I was just wondering too if it might be something around amendments to the MFIPA legislation. There might be something there that we could address as well.
Yes, and thank you very much for that. So this will stay on our radar, and we will continue to seek some sort of action from the government for all municipalities. So I have a resolution. Make sure I get the right one. That council approve the consent agenda as follows: items 8.2, 8.3, 8.5, and 8.6. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Brunetta, Councillor McTaggart. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, and no one is opposed. And then for resolution 8.4, recommendation reads that in accordance with Schedule A, Item 10 of Bylaw 53-23 relating to the delegation of powers and duties under certain acts, provides for the clerk as head in regard to the Municipal Freedom of Information Act and Protection, Privacy Act to report to council annually, and council receive report AR-24-0517 being the 2023 year-end MFIPA summary report as information. Mover and seconder on that, Councillor Behan, Councillor Mackey. Any further discussion on that? Councillor Behan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, did we not also already pass a resolution that another municipality had passed and we supported regarding this kind of idea that getting MFIPA to...
We had some time ago, yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, so it's not just our municipality that's noticing problems with this. It's right across the province. I'll call the question then. All in favor? It's carried, and no one is opposed. Okay. That brings us to item number 9, which is Administration and Finance Division reports. We have 2. Item 9.9 is the renewal of the medical tiered response agreement, and the recommendation reads that council approval of report AR-23-0522 agree with the recommendation of administration to renew the medical tiered response agreement between the town of Fort Frances and the District of Rainy River Services Board. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Bien, Councillor Olson. Any discussion? Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is really critical that we do approve this because it allows for the safety of our community, of citizens in the community. Just a quick question, if I could. When a response is requested for assistance, is it just the on-duty staff that does not allow for a call out of any kind? Am I correct in saying that?
CEO Rob?
That would depend on the time of day, how many staff are in the hall, and what the call is as to whether or not they would be reaching back out to dispatch for asking for assistance in terms of additional staff.
So, Your Worship, if I may?
Follow up, yes.
Yeah, so there could be some additional costs involved to us then.
CEO Rob?
I wouldn't necessarily say there'd be additional costs because we do have a tiered response agreement in place now. This is just an update to it. So we are already going out on certain medical calls. So I'm not going to say that there would be necessarily an increase in cost related to this.
Thank you, CEO Rob. Thank you, Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you.
Councillor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really happy to see this as well. In the last term of council, we really took a very close look at how frequently our fire department was dispatched to emergency situations. And we found that they were going to many calls that weren't necessarily required for them to go to. So we did look more closely at the triage and when it was necessary for our firefighters to go out. So I like the information regarding that the new dispatch system is going to, what is it? They're going to be triaged at a high level on the phone so that there's a proper dispatch in terms of what code it is and when our firefighters will go out. So hopefully it will result in a reduction of costs as opposed to an increase. That was just my thought.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried and no one is opposed. Item 9.2. This deals with an external communications survey data report, and the recommendation reads that council receive report AR-24-0520 for informational purposes, and that the communication coordinator / deputy clerk bring forward a municipal communication policy for council's consideration aimed to streamline communication channels, improve public outreach, and enhance the dissemination of information to our constituents. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor McTaggart. Any discussion on this one? Councillor Bernetta.
I was a bit disappointed in the response numbers, with only 55 people. It's too bad, but this is something actually we've been asking for some time in terms of finding out, the satisfaction of not just our staff, but also the public in terms of the services we provide. So I'm really looking forward to having this sort of as an ongoing process, and hopefully as more people are familiar with it, there'll be more responses. So I think it's great information to have sort of as a base, and hopefully we'll be able to build on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta. Councillor Bien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just want to add that Chelsea's only been on the job a very short time, but already I'm seeing a lot of difference already in terms of putting out things on our Facebook or website page. I really like the council newsletter, e-newsletter that Chelsea's brought up already. It comes out on the Friday after a council meeting. So I'm already seeing changes already that I'm really excited about. And I think the public will really find it too. That's helpful to them. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Bean. I would also add, when I've been out and about in the community, I've had a couple of people talk to me about how professional they thought the newsletter was and how much they appreciated it. Councillors, any other questions or discussion on this issue? I'll call the question then. All in favor? That's carried and no one is opposed. That brings us to item 10 and 10.1 we've already dealt with. Item 11 is Planning and Development Division reports. There are none. Item 12 is Operation Facilities Division reports. And 12.1, recommendation reads that Council approve this report, AR-25-0516, and establish the water and sewer user fees, Schedule F, as attached to this report. The user fees in the attached Schedule F have been established by the 3.3% increase approved by Council on November 27, 2023 via approval of report AR-23-0462 and by the water and wastewater rates established in Scenario 4 in report AR-25-0515 by Council's approval of report AR-24-0515 on February 13, 2024. And that a bylaw be brought to Council so that the fees can be implemented on March 1st, 2024. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McTaggart and Councillor Mackey. Any discussion on these rates? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? That's carried and no one is opposed. Okay, that brings us to 12.2. This is the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Community Enhancement Program, and it deals with rural enhancement funding for Fort Frances roof repairs. And the recommendation reads that Council of the Town of Fort Frances approve report AR-24-0501 to support application to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation Community Enhancement Program, Rural Enhancement Funding for the Fort Frances Facilities Roof Repairs Project, and that Council confirms total cost of the project of $40,000, including construction costs and contingency, and that Council confirms their funding request to the NOHFC for $30,000, including construction costs and contingency, and that Council confirms the project funding commitment of $10,000, including construction costs and contingency, and that Council confirms they will cover any project cost overruns. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Olson. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. That brings us to item 13, which are bylaws. We have 5 bylaws this evening. Recommendation reads that the following bylaws be introduced and read and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Bylaw 13-24 being a yes, my apologies. Yeah, I'll separate these so that you can stay for the first 3. I think you declared a conflict on 2 of them. 11-24 and 15-24.
13-14.
Okay. Sorry, Councilor Bernetta?
13, 14, 15.
Oh, all 3 of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you. So Councillor Mackey has declared a conflict on bylaws 13, 14, and 15. So we'll deal with the last 2 bylaws, 02, 03, and 89-23 first. So, bylaw 0203D being a bylaw to amend bylaw 02-03 to adopt a community improvement plan, and bylaw 89-23B being a bylaw to amend 89-23 to impose certain user fees, water and wastewater fees, for the corporation of the town of Fort Francis. A mover and seconder for those bylaws. Councillor Bernetta and Councillor Bien. Any discussion on those two bylaws? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, no one is opposed. And Councillor Mackey, minutes can show that Councillor Mackey has left the meeting. So on the three remaining bylaws, recommendation reads that bylaw 13-24 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Fort Francis GM re RFT 2024-0501 of 2 half-ton, 4-wheel drive extended cab pickup trucks be introduced and read and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Bylaw 14-24 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement with West End Motors re RFT 2024-05-01 of 1 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive crew cab truck with an 8-foot snowplow be introduced and read and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. And finally, that bylaw 15-24 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Sunset Country Ford re RFT 2024-05-01 of 1 all-wheel or 4-wheel drive panel cargo van be introduced and read and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Could I get a mover and seconder for those three? Moved by Councillor Bien, seconded by Councillor Olson. Any discussion on those three? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. No one is opposed. And that brings us to item 14, notice of motion or motion to consider. There is none. Item number 15 deals with a closed session, and the recommendation reads that council now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to 1, MFIPA IPC Appeal MA 23-00253, institution file number 2023-02. It's a meeting or part of a meeting that shall be closed to the public if subject matter being considered is a request under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act if the council, board, commission, or other body is the head of an institution for the purposes of that act. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Bien. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. So for those at home, we'll be moving in camera, and then we will come back to public session and report. We met in camera for the purpose of receiving information dealing with a request under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We also reviewed the closed meeting minutes of February 13th, and we have a resolution on that. Recommendation reads that council approve the closed meeting minutes of February 13th, 2024 as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bien and Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? Oh, Councillor Grisher?
I wasn't in attendance, so I'll abstain.
Okay. Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried with one abstention. Okay, that brings us to the confirmatory bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 16-24 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Fort Francis, be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with a corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Brunetta, Councillor Olson. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. No one is opposed. And finally, that brings us to our final resolution, that having reached the hour of 7:24, this meeting of the Council of the Town of Fort Francis be now closed. Mover and seconder, Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Mackey. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Thank you, managers.